The funeral flowers were still wilting in the living room when my stepmom tried to kick me out. Not even a month after losing my dad, I was handed an eviction notice by the woman who was supposed to be family. This isn't a story about grief, not really. Grief was the storm I thought I was weathering. This is about what happens when betrayal hits you like a second, even more devastating wave. It's about a realization that sometimes the people you think are protecting you are actually just waiting for their moment, and how, in the darkest time, a quiet love from the past can still save you. My name's Amelia, and I was 22 when my world fell apart, then was strangely put back together in a way I never saw coming. Before all this, the worst thing I'd ever known was the quiet, hollow ache of losing my mom when I was 10. After that, it was just Dad and me. He was my rock, my best friend, the one who taught me how to change a tire and how to laugh until my stomach hurt. We had our own little world, built on movie nights with cheap takeout, inside jokes that nobody else understood, and a bond that felt unbreakable. He raised me alone, navigating teenage angst and college applications with a patience I still don't fully grasp. Our house was more than just walls and a roof. It was a sanctuary, a living album of our memories. Every scuff on the floor, every height mark on the kitchen doorframe held a piece of our story. Then, Karen came along. She was a whirlwind, bright and loud, always calling everyone sweetie with a smile that felt a little too wide. She had this way of charming everyone, a kind of practiced sparkle that felt like it could light up a room, but also leave it feeling a little empty somehow. Dad, though, he seemed genuinely happy. And honestly, after years of him putting me first, seeing him light up like that, I wanted to be supportive. I really did. So when they got married when I was 18, I pushed down any uneasy feelings and tried to be happy for them. It was his happiness after all, or so I thought. Things started to shift slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. Karen had a knack for making changes that weren't overtly hostile, but chipped away at the familiar. She started redecorating, painting walls new colors, replacing old furniture. It sounds normal, right? But with every new throw pillow or trendy piece of art, a piece of us seemed to disappear. Family photos of my mom, of Dad and me, of our extended family, began to migrate. First to the hallway, then to the spare bedroom, and eventually, some of my childhood pictures ended up in boxes in the garage. It was like she was trying to erase the past, or at least rearrange it to fit her own narrative. Dad noticed, I know he did, but he'd just wave it off a little too quickly, saying, "She's just trying to make the place feel new, Amelia. Give her a break." I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him, because seeing him happy was the most important thing to me. I let it go. I packed my childhood memories into boxes and told myself it was just part of growing up, part of life moving forward. I focused on college, on building my own future, trying to ignore the creeping feeling that my home wasn't entirely mine anymore. Then last year, Dad got sick. It started subtly, a persistent cough, a new level of fatigue that even he couldn't laugh off, more frequent doctor visits, and days spent resting on the sofa instead of tinkering in the garage. It was a slow, terrifying fade, and my world started to shrink around the fear of losing him. Karen, though, she transformed. Suddenly, she was the epitome of the devoted wife. She cooked him special meals, even though her cooking had always been mediocre. She meticulously scheduled every appointment, every treatment. She'd sit by his bedside, holding his hand, posting inspirational quotes about love and devotion online, tagging him in everyone. She played the part perfectly, a living, breathing testament to unwavering marital loyalty. But something felt profoundly off. I'd catch her whispering on the phone, her voice dropping to a near-silent murmur, only to snap silent and pretend to be busy with something else the moment I walked into the room. Her eyes would dart, her smile would tighten. It was a performance, and I knew it. She also started asking Dad about finances, a lot. More than usual, she'd casually bring it up during dinner, or when he was too tired to fully engage. "Honey, have you sorted out the accounts? What about the paperwork for the house?" And she kept reminding him, subtly at first, then more pointedly, that I was an adult now, implying I should be completely independent, perhaps even suggesting I was a burden. Each comment was like a tiny pinprick, making me flinch, but Dad would just smile weakly, too tired to argue. When he passed, it felt like the world stopped. A gaping, silent hole opened up inside me. The funeral was a blur of black suits, tear-stained faces, and mumbled condolences. Karen was there, of course, performing her final act as the grieving widow. She cried loudly, dramatically, held everyone's hands, and accepted condolences with a sorrowful nod. She looked the part, every inch of it. 3 days later, the performance ended. The doors to Dad's office, to the rarely used formal dining room, to parts of my house, started being locked. Then, a week later, she announced with a brisk, businesslike tone that she was reorganizing finances. That's when I knew. That's when the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. The grief was still a raw wound, but a new, cold fear started to creep in. And then, 3 weeks after my dad's funeral, with the last vestiges of funeral flowers still wilting in a vase, she handed it to me. A printed notice, crisp and official-looking. 30 days. 30 days to leave. "I need to move forward," she said, her voice devoid of any real emotion. "You're young, Amelia. You'll figure it out." I just stared at her, the paper shaking slightly in my hand. My voice felt stuck in my throat, but I finally managed to whisper, "This is my home. It's always been my home." She didn't miss a beat. A small, cold smile played on her lips. "Well, legally it's mine now." That sentence, those 6 words, shattered something inside me. It wasn't just the eviction, it was the chilling, deliberate calculation behind it. I didn't fight. I didn't scream. I didn't say another word. I just went to my room, the sanctuary that now felt like a prison cell, and cried until I couldn't breathe. The raw, guttural sobs were laced with betrayal, a poison seeping into my grief. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of rustling. Karen was in my room, calmly, meticulously packing my things into boxes. Not aggressively, not angrily, but with an unsettling efficiency, like she was performing a chore. She even offered in a saccharine, sweet voice, "I found some apartments online you might be able to afford." It was then, seeing her almost pleasant demeanor, that the puzzle pieces clicked into place. This wasn't a snap decision born of grief or desperation. This was planned. This had been her endgame all along. I felt a sudden, desperate surge of anger, a protective instinct for my dad, even though he was gone. I needed help. I called my Aunt Sarah, Dad's sister. Her voice was quiet when I told her, a long pause stretching between us. Then she said something that changed everything. "Amelia, honey, did you ever hear from your dad's lawyer?" "Lawyer?" I had no idea what she was talking about. Dad had never mentioned a lawyer. I thought maybe it was some administrative thing, some medical paperwork I'd missed. But when I brought it up to Karen, she suddenly looked nervous. Her composed mask slipped for a fleeting second. Her eyes flickered. "Oh, Amelia, don't be silly," she said, waving a dismissive hand. "Your dad didn't leave anything complicated. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. There's no lawyer to call." That sentence, her immediate dismissal, and the almost frantic tone in her voice, didn't sit right. It felt like a red flag the size of a billboard. She was too quick, too dismissive. Her nervousness was palpable. So, defying her, I called the law office myself. Aunt Sarah had given me the name. The receptionist paused when I gave my name. "Amelia Harper?" she asked, her voice a little too surprised. "Oh, yes. Mr. Harper asked us to contact you. We've been trying." My heart started pounding, a frantic drum against my ribs. Contact me? For what? They scheduled a meeting for the next morning. Karen, sensing something was amiss, tried to come with me. She insisted, "As your stepmother, I should be there to support you, dear." But the lawyer's office was firm. Ms. Harper specifically requested to meet with Amelia alone. When I walked into that quiet wood-paneled office, my stomach was a knot of anxiety and a flicker of hope. The lawyer, a kind-faced woman named Ms. Davies, slid a thick folder across the polished table. "Amelia," she began, her voice calm and reassuring, "your father updated his will 6 months ago." 6 months. That timeline hit me hard. It was around the time Dad's illness had really started to take hold. Ms. Davies explained everything, calmly, methodically. Dad had discovered Karen was having an affair, not just a fleeting mistake, but a long-standing, calculated deception. And worse, he'd found messages, evidence that she'd been talking to this person about how much she stood to inherit if he died. She'd been discussing his death and her payout. It was enough. Enough for Dad to completely rewrite his estate plan in secret with the help of this lawyer. The house? Left entirely to me. The savings? Mostly to me. Karen? A small, fixed amount. A final act of cold, hard justice for a woman who had tried to erase his past and steal his future. And nothing else. I just sat there, stunned, my mind struggling to process it all. Dad knew. He knew everything, all those whispers, all those seemingly innocent questions about money, all those little jabs about me being an adult now. He'd seen through it all, and he'd protected me without ever saying a word. The lawyer looked at me, her eyes empathetic. He wanted you safe, Amelia. He wanted to make sure you would always have a home. And in that quiet office, the dam broke. I cried, but it wasn't the searing grief I'd felt at the funeral. It was a profound, overwhelming wave of relief, of gratitude, of love. My dad, even as his own life was slipping away, had thought of me, had shielded me from this predator. He hadn't forgotten me. He hadn't let her win. When I got home, Karen was sitting at the kitchen table, a picture of smug entitlement, sipping tea like she owned the place. She looked up, a triumphant smirk on her face. So, was all that drama really necessary? I hope you didn't make too much trouble for yourself. I didn't say a word. I just walked over to the table and placed the folder, the one with my name on the top, directly in front of her. Her smile disappeared. Her eyes, usually so calculating, widened as she saw the official seal. She snatched it up, flipping through the pages faster and faster, her breathing becoming shallow. Her face, usually so perfectly made up, turned pale, then mottled with red. This can't be right, she stammered, her voice thin and reedy. I looked her dead in the eye and said the most satisfying words I have ever spoken in my life. You're the one getting evicted. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by her sharp intake of breath. Then she exploded, yelling, screaming, accusing me of manipulating my dead father, of twisting his words. She cried, real tears this time, as she declared Dad must have been coerced, that he was too sick to know what he was doing. When that didn't work, she switched tactics, her voice dropping to a theatrical sob, begging, I took care of him. I sacrificed everything. I deserve this. I just stared at her, my heart a stone. Because in that moment, all the old memories, all the subtle slights, all the times she'd pushed me aside, every veiled insult, every moment she acted like she was just waiting for him to be gone, flashed through my mind. She had 30 days, the exact same amount she had given me. Karen tried to fight it legally. She hired her own lawyer, threatened lawsuits, made claims that my dad was mentally unsound when he changed his will. But it was all for nothing. Ms. Davies had done her job well. Apparently, Dad had documented everything. Not just Karen's affair, but careful notes about his intentions, his conversations with the lawyer, and his clear understanding of his wishes. He had laid a trap, and she had walked right into it. The day she moved out, the house was strangely quiet. A moving truck, half filled with her designer furniture, idled in the driveway. Neighbors watched from behind curtains, their curiosity barely contained. Karen avoided eye contact, her face a mask of bitter defeat as she carried her last few boxes out the door. I won't lie, it felt good. Not a malicious, vengeful kind of good, but a quiet, profound satisfaction. The kind you feel when justice, however delayed, finally arrives. The house felt different afterward. It felt lighter, quieter, more peaceful, like it could breathe again. The air no longer felt thick with unspoken tension or veiled hostility. A few days later, while slowly putting my childhood photos back on the mantelpiece, I found it, tucked away in a secret compartment in Dad's old desk, under a pile of old letters. A letter addressed to me, in his familiar handwriting. It said, Amelia, if you're reading this, I'm sorry I couldn't tell you everything. I just wanted you protected. I saw it all, honey. I know I couldn't make it right when I was sick, but I wanted to make sure you were safe, and that this would always be your home. My beautiful, strong girl, always remember how much I love you, and always know this house is yours. I cried harder than I did at the funeral. Not from pain this time, but from an overwhelming surge of love, understanding, and immense belated relief. Because in that moment, I realized he truly saw everything. He knew. And despite everything, he chose me. He protected me. Now I'm slowly fixing up the house, painting, repairing, putting the old photos back where they belong, creating new memories in the home that is truly mine, a legacy of love and foresight. Sometimes, a tiny unconscious part of me still expects Karen to walk in and criticize something, to point out a flaw, or subtly undermine my choices. But she's gone. And honestly, the silence where she used to be feels like the truest form of freedom. So tell me, if you were in my position, if you just lost the most important person in your life, and then faced that kind of calculated betrayal, would you have kicked her out immediately? Or would you have found some way to show mercy after everything she did? Because part of me still wonders if I was too cold, too unforgiving. But another, much stronger part thinks, she got exactly what she came for. Nothing. Karma or cruelty? What do you think? And if you enjoy real Reddit-style stories like this, follow for more.